Welcome to the Optimal Truth Network. Here we are dedicated to bringing you relevant and timely information. Our culture is ever changing. With that, we face challenges which are vast and complex. Amid the chaos, we hope to be a calming and rational resource for you and your family. To stay tuned to the Optimal Truth Network, visit us at baldwincountysra.org and subscribe to our email newsletter. Again, that's baldwincountysra.org. Simply provide your name and email and get the latest and most relevant information. Thank you for joining us.
Well, welcome back in. Jason Mann with Optimal Truth. So glad to have you along with us. If you're keeping up with our video series, you should be already pretty well informed on sexual risk avoidance, things like comprehensive sex ed, the issues that our teens are facing with pop culture when it comes to concepts of sex and relationships. And I hope by this time, as we've discussed both big picture and locally focused topics that relate to what our teens are facing, what parents are facing, what school systems are facing. I would hope by now that you're developing a personal passion for making sure that our youth are receiving proper education when it comes to sexual health development, family relationships, healthy relationships. Because if we're not going to be the vanguard for their health, then who will be? I'm convinced that the issue of teen sex branches into every aspect of our society, culture, family life. Because if we can disconnect sex from proper relationships, then we can tear apart the fabric of our society as a whole. When sex is saved for a marital relationship, then we begin to place it in the context of a trusting, loving, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy uh, situation in which sex is beneficial. And by building those types of family units, the nuclear family, that type of relationship, then we set up the next generation for a healthy society. Um, we know that really the family is where we develop our philosophies on society, where we develop our approach to the issues that we face. And you think about where we're at today, that is as early as the 60s, we begin to see the fabric of the nuclear family unraveling. And we saw very quickly on the heels of the sexual revolution in the 60s that we began dealing with increased divorce rates in America, increased disease, infection, transmission in America. Promiscuity opened the door to many areas of teen risk behavior, substance abuse, violence, you name it. And so we've seen over the course of a few decades how many aspects of a healthy American culture has eroded simply because of the breakdown of the connection between sex and healthy relationships. So, why do I say all that? Why is that relevant right now? I think it's relevant right now because for about 7 years now, there have been champions for proper sexual health education that have been working to get Alabama laws tightened up when it comes to what's being taught about sex in Alabama's classrooms. And it's more needed than you realize. So, where does that put us in Alabama? Well, currently, the Alabama law, you can find it in 16 40A 2 is the current Alabama law for sex education. And it's a one-page law. And though it does not require Alabama public schools to teach sex education, it does stipulate some minimum educational concepts should they choose to do so. And it's sad to say that those educational concepts are broad and they're vague, and they're just vague enough to allow other entities to creep into our classrooms and teach what is called comprehensive sex education. And so this is a moment for me to once again make the distinction between comprehensive sex ed or sexual risk reduction. It can go by either name. And comprehensive sex ed, sexual risk reduction versus sexual risk avoidance. So, how can I sum up the difference between these two? Well, comprehensive sex ed, if that type of education model were to address something like teen alcohol consumption, their approach to alcohol consumption would not be avoidance altogether or zero tolerance. Instead, they would teach about appropriate times for a teen to drink alcohol or appropriate contexts and relationships in which they could drink alcohol. Or it might even talk about things like moderation of alcohol consumption under parental supervision. And it's alarming to me that that concept would carry over to alcohol in that way because we know what federal laws and state laws are is until you're 21, you can't drink alcohol. And this is what I mean by that. We as a nation, as a culture, have a zero tolerance health education perspective on teen risk behaviors. In the zero tolerance, no alcohol consumption, zero tolerance on bullying and violence, zero tolerance on teen smoking and vaping, zero tolerance on so many teen risk behaviors that we're telling them you cannot in any way, shape, or form engage in these types of activities at your age because they have zero health benefits for you. And we understand a lot of that is connected to the development of adolescence. It's brain development, it's the prefrontal cortex and how it affects the way that they develop habits, both good or bad. And so we as a culture, as a society, understand a zero tolerance perspective when it comes to these 10 risk behaviors. However, when it comes to teen sex, we take a totally different approach. We seem to think that the adolescent mind that cannot properly manage alcohol or voting for that matter, we seem to think that that mind can handle something as complex as sexuality and sexual expression and relationships. Even in Alabama, the age of consent for teen sex is 16. But contrary to that laws, we say that minors should not be engaging in sexual activity under the age of 18 because that could be considered statutory rape. So we're really confused on this issue. Why wouldn't we approach teen sex with the same fundamental concept of avoidance altogether? Zero tolerance, because the CDC, and I can dive into the depth of the research that the CDC has offered us, that the catastrophic nature of teen sexuality, the epidemic of STDs, the emotional and health correlational issues that they're dealing with because of what they think is a free pass to engage in sexual activity because we as a culture have allowed entities to normalize it. Comprehensive sex ed normalizes teen sex. Not only do they normalize it, but they encourage it. I'm going to flash up some information. Just a couple of years ago, there were some comprehensive sex ed organizations that were working with the Alabama Department of Public Health to get certain types of educational content into our classrooms. And so, what you're going to see here on the screen is you're going to see excerpts from what they were teaching in the classrooms, things where they were encouraging fantasy and foreplay as teens used condoms. It's not something where we're trying to discourage the use of condoms. Absolutely. That's something that even SRA teaches on when we teach about the efficacy of condoms and their reliability and the factual evidence as to how much they actually protect an individual. But we're not going to encourage it. We're not going to demonstrate it. We're not going to bring those things in the classroom and pass them out to children without, parents' knowledge. And so they're seeking to teach this type of content even as early as middle school. There's even some entities throughout America that teach comprehensive sex ed, and they want to go into elementary school classrooms and they want to hypersexualize our kids. So, comprehensive sex ed can creep in under current Alabama laws, and those are things that we're wanting to stop. Now, I've got to make another distinction here when it comes to comprehensive sex ed and what the law supports. Since 2016, the state of California has not only required comprehensive sex ed to be taught in their state as that educational model, but they've actually mandated it to be taught in every classroom in California. So, comprehensive sex ed is their adopted sex education policy. So I think it's worth noting that right now in the state of California, they have the highest number of infections for both HIV and chlamydia, both of these being key, critical, and very common STI infections, more common than we realize. So I think it's easy to see if comprehensive sex ed is what's allowed but mandated and required throughout the state, then it doesn't yield the desired result because the desired result is to reduce teen STD infections. SB 209 is the current bill that's being pushed through our state government that is meant to tighten up sex education laws and what gets into our classrooms. It's important to note that this still does not require schools to teach sex education. Now, there are minimum health education standards that the Alabama Board of Education does require. They are required to talk about disease prevention. They are required to teach about HIV and AIDS. They are required to talk about teen pregnancy, teen parenting obligations. So those requirements are still there. And this law would make sure that even when those things are being taught, that it's from a sexual risk avoidance perspective, not from a comprehensive sex ed. It's all about discouraging sexual initiation. It's all about encouraging teens to save sex for the appropriate time in their life. We even have research that tells us when that appropriate time is. Last year, there was a law passed. This is Act 2025 411. You can look it up. I'll even flash it up on the screen real quick. So, starting in fall of 2026, every Alabama public school will be required to teach the success sequence. And that is an easy 3-step process that is focused on preventing poverty amongst our youth. So the process is number one, teens need to graduate high school. Number two, they need to obtain full time employment or focus on their career. And number three, get married before having children. And what we've discovered as a nation and why this is being implemented as a mandated education requirement is that teens, no matter what background they come from, whether they're impoverished or not, what we've discovered is that teens that follow that 3-step process, they have less than a 2% chance of ever living in poverty, no matter what background they come from. Sexual risk avoidance embodies, supports, and teaches the success sequence. It is the core nature of what we teach because it's all about do not have sex. Get a future focused mindset. Graduate high school. Focus on your career and your personal health. And then when you're ready for a family, get married and then bring sex into the relationship. Because that is what has been proven through multiple aspects of research that the healthiest approach to family is to have marriage as a part of the relationship before sex is involved. Anything else has proven to be destructive to our teenagers. So SB 209 recently passed out of the Senate with a favorable vote. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's really interesting when it comes to that vote. There was one individual that voted yes on SB 209 that was a shock and a surprise, and that is Senator Roger Smitherman. And he represents some of the Birmingham area, Jefferson County school systems. Now, he is a ranking member of the Democratic Party for the state Senate. And not only did he vote yes, but I've got to tell you, he gave a public verbal endorsement of this bill from the podium while this bill was on the floor for a vote.
It's an agreement with what you're doing, but I'm talking about the process, the procedures. How will we be able to ensure that parents got notice? Is that discussed in there, how they gonna be notified?
All right, on page 7, line 182, it says parents or guardians shall be given advanced written notification of teaching of any sex education or of the human reproductive process at least 14 days before this content is taught to students. Upon the request of a parent or guardian and prior to the distribution to students, the school shall make available to parents and guardians the sex education curriculum in its entirety and provide each parent or guardian with the opportunity to opt his or her child out from this instruction with no penalty to the student.
Well, I see, and that's good. That's good, and I like the way that they'll have the opportunity to see that curriculum prior to opting in if there's concern about what's being taught. I think that part is good too.
We definitely want parent involvement in all those kind of
Yeah.
decisions.
So I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Senator.
I've been provided all the facts and everything about it, so I know what it does, and at the proper time, I'm going to vote and support your bill.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. And I thank you for what you do for our kids. And I know you're around them all the time. And that's what we want to do is educate them and, hey, make their lives better in the future. That's all we want to do.
That is amazing to me. And I'll tell you what it highlights is that sexual health development and the education that our teens receive is not a political issue. We are not representing, as an optimal truth, we are not representing a political party. We are representing the family, the youth, and the education that our teens receive. That's what we're representing. And Roger Smitherman, I had a chance to speak with him briefly after they voted on this bill, and he is an amazing representative of what proper sex education should be about. It's about the health and well-being of our teens. There are things that our teens need to know when it comes to sex education that comprehensive sex ed is not teaching. It is not teaching healthy sexual relationship values. To encourage a 13-year-old to engage in sexual exploration is not healthy for them. And comprehensive sex ed does not promote the delay or initiation of sexual activity. It does not highlight the strength of the nuclear family when it comes to raising kids. It does not emphasize these things. And Roger Smitherman recognizes that. And he recognizes that sexual risk avoidance is what's needed. Also, did you know that Montgomery City Schools currently require sexual risk avoidance? One of our coalition partners in the city of Montgomery is the mandated and primary sex education resource, because even Montgomery City Schools recognize the plight of their youth and said, we need risk avoidance education. In other words, they're adopting the same primary prevention health education model for every other teen risk behavior. And this law, SB 209, this law is going to make sure that when it passes and when the governor signs it into law, that is going to be what's required when sex education is taught in our schools, is that they need to avoid the risk altogether. There are 19 sexual risk avoidance education providers throughout the state, and let me tell you what they offer. These are individuals, these are not government agencies that are receiving government funds to come in from the outside into your communities and attempt to take over parental sex education. These are homegrown. They have kids that are in schools with your kids. Like Optimal Truth, these coalition partners teach primary prevention, optimal health, and we focus on developing future-focused youth. What we want them to be able to do is to resist unwanted pressure and choose what's best for them. Did you know that right now 70% of American teens are not having sex? So if they're choosing to willfully not have sex, then shouldn't we adopt education resources and teach skills that help them achieve that personal goal? Sexual risk avoidance does that. Comprehensive sex ed, they want our youth to be sexualized at a very young age. Why is that? Well, let's be frank. Abortion providers, condom companies, big pharma pushing the birth control pill, the online porn industries, and many other agencies, they are poised to reap a substantial financial harvest when it comes to our children being engaged in harmful sexual activity. That's just the bottom line. You follow the money, you find why they are motivated to push our kids into sexual activity too early. We want to emphasize a delay or an avoidance is key right now in their life. because that sexual activity outside of a lifelong trusting relationship with a single partner is too harmful for them. It is too risky. We want them to have familial trust, meaning we encourage them to talk to parents. Matter of fact, SRA providers are an open book when it comes to parental involvement. We want parents to be involved when it comes to their kids and sex education. This phase in their life, puberty, this adolescent growth, it is critical that trusted adults, primarily parents, be involved. And Senate Bill 209, you're going to see all of that is specified and emphasized as a requirement for sexual risk avoidance education. Right now, it has passed out of the Senate, so this bill will go before the House for a vote. First step is to go before the House Education Policy Committee, and once it passes out of the Education Policy Committee, then we will be able to get it on the House floor for a vote. And then the next thing I'd request is if you're listening to this video right now, I need two huge favors and requirements from you. First of all, I don't care about the like and the share of this channel, but what I do need is for you to share this video. Individuals in Baldwin County community need to understand what is going on with sex education in Alabama. And right now, Optimal Truth is still the primary sex education resource for Baldwin County Public Schools, but we're not required or mandated in the classroom. And we would love to be required and mandated. So you need to know that locally, but statewide as well. So please share this video, push it to everyone that you know, your friends, educators, everyone that you know, so that they're aware that resources like Optimal Truth are out there. And we want what's best for our youth, for our families, for the parents of these teenagers. And secondly, I need you to contact your representatives. All of our local representatives need to understand how important this bill is, because it's not so much about what sexual risk avoidance provides, though that is critical, but it's also about what we get to keep out of our schools, because we should not have harmful sexual health content being taught to our kids. It should be in the schools. So please share this video and contact your representatives and tell them to support SB 209. I thank you for tuning in to this video, and go back and watch our other videos. You're going to see so much more content and conversations that revolve around many aspects of this, and we're going to see you again in the very near future.
We hope you not only enjoyed this episode, but more importantly, we hope you were able to get some critical information takeaways. Please give us some feedback and send us your questions. As a community, we rely upon all of you to refine our message. Give us a like, share our content with your friends and family, and be sure to subscribe to our network. Thanks for tuning in into Optimal Truth.